to episode 3 of our third series on the surnames and early families of Appalachia and the good old American South. Today's names will take us back to England, France, Germany, Ireland, and Scotland. We'll also get to investigate 2 families that had an early presence in Louisiana. We'll also look briefly into the family tree of a former Secretary of State. If you're new to the channel, I mix in a bit of history, genealogy, movie trivia, and so forth, along with the origin and meaning of requested surnames. My main goal is to identify families that have been in Appalachia and the southern United States since before the Civil War. If you're my age or older, there's a good chance that you know where your recent ancestors originated. Here's a sad fact to note, folks. It's commonly believed that within 4 generations, meaning your great-grandchildren's generation, a family's personal stories and names are likely to be significantly faded or forgotten, with details becoming less readily accessible as time passes. This series is dedicated to the memories of those who gave us life and freedom. If you'd like a free copy of the surname catalog that lists the names and episodes that have been covered thus far, stick around to the end to find out how you can get one. It's just an email away. Promises to be a good show, so hope you'll join me. Number 1, Munsey, Munsey, or Munsey. There seems to be general agreement that Munsey entered Great Britain in 1066 with the French-speaking Normans. The surname stems from the old French word munsel, or small hill, which was itself a modified form of the Latin Montecellum. Now, I don't see a connection or an association with the Scottish name Munsey or Munsey, which stood for guttural. I was able to find versions of the surname among the traditional families of Scotland, though, and England. That kind of dispersal or spreading out was fairly common for Norman nobles who had the political clout to acquire farmlands. In the event that you might be wondering how or why that arrangement developed, it was because in the feudal system, or feudal era, nobles swore fealty to a monarch who granted him lands and titles. In exchange, the noble, who was often titled lord, was knighted, sir, and required to perform military service. Unfortunately, those titles didn't typically accompany men who immigrated to America, although Sir George Yardley was a knight and served as a colonial governor in Jamestown Colony. He died there in 1627 and is thought to be buried beneath a knight's tombstone. Speaking of Virginia, about 32% of Munsey families in America in 1840 lived in that state. In another example of southern families originating in New England, which wasn't particularly common, it seems that some of the earliest Munsey families in Virginia first arrived in Massachusetts in the middle of the 1600s. John Munsey, whose parents came from England, was born there in 1660. His great-grandson, Samuel Jr., was born in Delaware in 1740. And Samuel III, John Munsey's great-great-grandson, greeted the world in the warm environment of Virginia in 1767. At the end of the day, I'm confident that Munsey is an antebellum family with at least one line going back to England. Other lines might well trace back to Scotland, but to be honest, I didn't find a direct link between the Bonnie Land and any of the dozen or so Munsey folk that I found in the records. Number 2, Williamson. Every once in a while, someone requests a name that's found in my own family tree from which I descend, and hopefully not hanging from any limbs. In this case, my beloved daughter married into the Williamson family. So now I have 3 exceedingly precious granddaughters, who, next to my daughter and son, have a hold on my heart that will not be loosened until I take my last breath here on planet Earth. Their names are Zoe, Hattie, and Rosie Williamson. Despite its English appearance, Edward McLysick points out that even in Ireland it's generally thought of as having a Scottish origin. So there's clearly a trans-Irish Sea aspect to the Williamson family. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Irish Sea lies between Ireland and Great Britain. And of course, Great Britain would include Scotland in the north, Wales in the west, and England in the east. When I lived in Dunning, Scotland, the local Church of Scotland minister was a tall man named Colin Williamson, who was born and raised actually in Northern Ireland. In fact, he was the secretary of the Irish Ministers' Fraternal Association or Society. It was some kind of organization within the Church of Scotland. And not surprisingly, George Fraser Black devotes a great deal of attention to the family in his book on Scottish surnames. which he says means the son of William. Duh. And has been in the Scottish records since 1317. It's now found in parts of England, Scotland, and Wales, as well as Ireland. Now, in the case of my son-in-law, he's 56% Irish, and since I'm 50% Scottish and 14% Irish, that's almost 2/3 Scots-Irish, the grandbabies are Scots-Irish lasses for sure, and they're connected to a large and dispersed Williamson clan. There was a Timothy Williamson who lived in the Plymouth colony in 1643, but I have found no idea or no trace or evidence that his family moved to the south. I was able to find a line of North Carolina Williamsons that originated with Michael Williamson, who was born in Ireland in 1710. Michael Williamson left Ireland for Pennsylvania, and like so many other settlers, he headed south down the Shenandoah Valley and settled first in Virginia. One of his sons was named John. He moved to Jackson, Tennessee, and died there in 1818 at the young age of 84. Thomas was another of Michael's sons. He relocated to Union, South Carolina. Another son moved to Kentucky. So Michael did a good job of making Williamson an antebellum family of Irish origin. Number 3, Ainger, or Ainger. This surname is from the southern German region known as Bavaria, or the German-influenced region of Lorraine in France. It's habitational, so whoever was first named this lived in places called Otting or Ottinger. Americans with this family name descend from male lines that didn't stay for any length of genealogical time in Great Britain or Ireland. In that regard, they're unique in the South. As one would expect in a lot of German-American families, their ancestors first came to Pennsylvania. For instance, William Ainger was born in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania in 1823. I'm not sure if he was related to Johann or John Ainger, who was born nearly 50 years earlier in York County. That would place his birth somewhere around 1774. Johann married a lady from Shenandoah County, Virginia. They moved on to Cocke County, Tennessee. Johann passed away near Greenville, Tennessee in 1844. Ainger is an antebellum family of German derivation. Number 4, Colette or Colette. Folks, it's no secret that I love good movies, music, and art. For some reason, I've always liked horror and mystery genres the best. Now, when I was about 18, the mother of a buddy of mine in Oliver Springs, his name is Joe Carter, asked me to stop getting her son to watch scary movies at the Grove Theater in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. She said that he was having too many nightmares. Well, what does that have to do with Colette? Yeah, that's the easy one. Did you ever watch the movie The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis and little Haley Joel Osment? Toni Collette played Haley's dedicated mom. In my humble and moderately informed opinion, Toni is underappreciated for her acting abilities. At any rate, her family name is of French origin, so it entered the Isles with the Normans after 1066. It was a pet diminutive form of Nicholas or Nicole. Unlike Muny that we looked at just a few minutes ago, this Norman name didn't spread throughout the Isles in any significant way, so I'm fairly confident that it's an Anglo-French surname. Now there's some indication or some evidence to indicate that in some instances Colette or Colette might have arrived in North America straight from France. For instance, Jean-Baptiste Colette was born in Louisiana around 1776. He and his wife Marie Celestine, boy that sounds foreign if there ever was a name that's foreign, who was also born in Louisiana around 1805, had at least 2 sons and 3 daughters. Clearly, Colette is an antebellum family of Anglo-French or French derivation. Number 5, Livingston or Livingstone. While Livingston is found among a number of ethnic groups in America, it actually has a Scottish origin. It's taken from a place in Lothian that in Middle English was called Livingston. Not too far from Tennessee Tech University, where I earned my bachelor's degree, is a wee town called Livingston, Tennessee. Now, Livingston is the capital of Putnam County and was named after Edward Livingston, who was born in 1764 and died in 1836. He served as a diplomat in France as Secretary of State under Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory himself. Although he was born in New York and served in Congress from that state, he later practiced law in the new state of Louisiana and eventually served in both houses of Congress from Louisiana. While serving under Jackson, he inherited his sister's estate in Red Hook, New York, so he moved back to his birth state in 1831. There are plenty of instances, though, of folks named Livingston living in the South during the antebellum period, including the family line of John Bray Livingston, who was born in Newberry, South Carolina in 1857. Well, folks, that's about all I have for you today. I hope you got something meaningful out of the discussion and will join me again here on The Vantage Point. If you'd like a free copy of the list of names that we've covered thus far, write to me at vantagepoint22@gmail.com and I'll send it to you ASAP. Until we meet again, God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.